The streaming wars are over, and it's not that the rest of the bunch has surrendered to Netflix or YouTube, although that day is probably coming. It's that many of these platforms rushed to market during the last several years, and since then have continued to raise prices, increase ads, and crack down on password sharing, all while forgetting or neglecting to do the one thing that matters most: create a sustainable quality product. And as a result, it's us, the consumers, that have lost. But this isn't just my opinion that says so. According to Antenna, a subscription research firm, they stated that more than 29 million, or about a quarter of domestic paying streaming subscribers, have canceled 3 or more services over the last 2 years. The majority of these streaming services are burning millions in cash every year. So how can they possibly be losing so much money, all while their product has seemingly gotten worse? And what will these streaming services look like over the next several years? I mean, there's a paradox here. Prices are going up, the experience is getting worse, and the quality of content is widely dropped.
I've been struck by the new bundles. It's like what's old is new, and I feel like deja vu all over again. Am I going to have a streaming bundle? That's the way it's eventually going to work.
You probably will, and most people do now. So
the most plausible reason for these companies raising prices is their ever-long attempt at growth. All of these streaming companies are public companies, and they serve to increase shareholder value first and foremost. Wall Street loves recurring revenue that can be replicated and grown for years. But while the streaming business model set out to disrupt the cable TV and movie industry as a whole, the typical tech company focuses on growth first and then tries to figure out how to monetize its large user base later. Most of these streaming companies fell into this kind of thinking. However, over the last couple years, as interest rates have continued to rise, borrowing cash isn't as cheap as it used to be, and companies have had to buckle down to find a path to profitability. But here's the thing. Media is a tough business, and there isn't an exact science to it all that can be replicated over and over again. Not only is the landscape ever changing, it can be hard to make a profit on certain films or television shows for a variety of reasons. Maybe it wasn't marketed right, maybe executives changed around the edit in the final cut, or maybe the idea as a whole just wasn't that great. Therefore, some executives don't like to accept this, so they'd rather find the closest thing they can to an exact science, which is a huge reason why we're seeing a plethora of remakes and unoriginal content right now. Not only that, but with borrowing power decreasing and competition at an all-time high, these companies are not willing to take as many risks as they may have previously been willing to. There's also another important layer that deserves to be mentioned, and that's the writers and actors strike that occurred in 2023, which slowed down production immensely. Now, maybe in another video, I can cover that topic more appropriately, but for now, we need to look at the record to see how these companies are losing so much money. Paramount Plus, NBC's Peacock, Disney Plus all reported a negative profit loss for the year of 2023. Max, which is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, one of the worst rebrands ever, was able to etch out a $100 million profit for the first time, despite the company as a whole losing millions last year. While Netflix has been profitable for several years now, and Google hasn't explicitly said whether YouTube is profitable, Google does report on YouTube's numbers, and they stated that they made over $30 billion in advertising revenue in just 2023, and that they have over 100 million paying subscribers for YouTube Premium. However, things here are constantly changing, because in the first quarter of 2024, Disney said that Hulu and Disney Plus combined were profitable, but that their full streaming segment, which includes ESPN Plus, was not profitable yet, but it was getting closer. The more research I did on these companies' finances, the more convoluted it became. But the main reason for some of these companies getting closer to, or in some cases reaching profitability, can be attributed to the full force push of ad-supported tiers and price hikes, along with them being able to spend much less on the content that they're producing or providing. Anyone notice the influx of reality TV recently? Yeah, that's because of the writers and actors strike back in 2023, and the fact that it's much cheaper to produce than a traditional show or movie. Of course, though, this is what will frustrate consumers the most. Not reality TV per se, but the changes in these streaming services. For example, over the last year, Amazon, Netflix, Disney, and Max have all increased their ad-free subscriptions and have added a lower cost ad-tiered plan. Apple TV's subscription has doubled in just 2 years, from $4.99 a month to $9.99 a month. And if you compare that to Netflix's ad-free subscription of $15.99 a month, it's actually one of the more affordable offerings that doesn't have ads in it, at least in the majority of its programming. But this trend of ads is quickly becoming a staple of the streaming industry, as the different platforms try to copy one another in an attempt to find profitability. With ad-supported tiers being significantly more common and increasing the monthly cost of ad-free tiers, the increase increase in price can be attributed to the rising costs of producing content alongside the streaming company's attempt at combating churn. This is the term used for subscribers who only subscribe to watch a specific show or movie and then cancel shortly afterwards. CEO David Zaslav of Warner Bros. Discovery stated that the real challenge is the churn, and that without recurring subscribers, it's very difficult to build a strong business. Zaslav believes that churn is the primary factor in the killing of the streaming business, and it's rather ironic that their solution to churn is to raise prices, which I would think undoubtedly would make more consumers think about canceling their subscriptions, particularly in a time when everything costs significantly more than it did even a couple years ago. But then again, what do I know? This is the same guy who said TNT didn't need to get into a bidding war for the NBA's broadcast rights and ended up losing it to NBC and Amazon Prime, which has helped contribute to Warner Bros. Discovery stock being down 50% in just the last year. So while churn may be partially to blame for Warner Bros. And other streaming giants' recent failures, it's something that the streaming industry as a whole will continue to face, especially if they continue down the road that they're on. According to Yahoo Finance, in September of 2023, about 6% of all streaming subscribers in the US canceled their services, the highest churn rate ever recorded. Now, 6% doesn't sound like a lot on the surface. I mean, after all, Netflix last reported in Q1 of 2024 that they had around 269 million paying subscribers. Even in spite of them cracking down on password sharing accounts, they were still able to grow their subscriber base. But here's the interesting thing. Previously, Netflix would always discuss their subscriber numbers in earnings calls because even if Netflix wasn't generating a huge profit, Wall Street was far more concerned with their growth. And the metric of subscribers was one of the most important factors that Netflix discussed. However, in their last earnings call, Netflix announced they would no longer be reporting on subscriber numbers. They said that this is due to their implementation of the ad-based tiers and the difference in price for each subscription that they now offer. But if the cynic in me is to speculate here, Netflix is done reporting subscriber numbers because when Wall Street saw a decline in this number back in 2022, Netflix's stock plummeted. And Netflix knows that their growth is going to be limited due to how long they've been around and due to these drastic changes in the industry. So as a result, they're going to focus more on extracting more money per user as opposed to growing the overall pot of subscribers. But let's back up for a moment to when streaming was first conceived. The product was initially a solution to the outdated cable TV model. Consumers would subscribe to one service where they could watch a catalog of content while paying a much smaller monthly fee than cable, and not only that, but they would get this service generally without any ads. As a result, they were able to keep up with their favorite shows and watch them at their own pace. And sure, many of us binge watched Breaking Bad in a 2-week span, but streaming ultimately offered convenience more than anything else. You didn't have to make sure to be in front of your TV for that 1-hour span every single week to catch your favorite show anymore. Now, over the years, this model has been attributed to many consumers cord-cutting their traditional cable television packages. But today, with well over 10 different streaming platforms and all of them following one another's moves, it feels like we're coming full circle back to cable TV. If you think about it for a second, to watch multiple different shows now, you most likely will have to be subscribed to several different platforms to unlock the access. We are now seeing an increase in bundles all over the place, quoting a lower price if you get multiple subscriptions tied into one. Recently, Disney and Warner Bros. Announced that they are launching a bundle with Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max all tied into one streaming bundle. Now, these companies are trying to do anything and everything to increase their total number of subscribers, hoping for the ultimate way to combat churning customers. And although this trend may result in increased subscription numbers, it will also promote more cases of piracy. With content being strewn across multiple platforms, coupled with higher prices, some will certainly make the choice to view content illegally. According to Bloomberg, the US Chamber of Commerce's Global Innovation Policy Center estimates that piracy involving illegal streaming services, as well as file sharing, costs the US economy about $30 billion in lost revenue a year and nearly 250,000 jobs. Now, some of these illegal streaming sites even turn a massive profit, with estimates at $2 billion annually from ads and subscriptions. Now, consumers could be pirating content for any number of reasons. Initially, streaming sort of combated piracy, but now we're seeing an uptick in it. And a huge reason why consumers will turn to pirated content is due to licensing. See, if a company or studio doesn't own the rights to the TV or movie, then they're going to pay the owner a licensing fee to broadcast it on their platform. This is how Netflix began operating and how they still operate to an extent today. Although over the last several years, Netflix has begun producing their own content. And according to the LA Times, during the first half of 2023, about 45% of viewing hours on on Netflix were generated by licensed titles. But I'm sure you've noticed a big problem with this when it comes to all of these different streaming services now. This means that generally there's a finite amount of time in which some of your favorite shows or movies are available on that streaming platform. If you didn't have the time, or you put off watching that show or movie, and then you return to see it not being available anymore, well, it feels like you don't have much ownership over this product as a whole. And this is why this meme always hits. But the reason streaming companies constantly remove licensed content is because if that show or movie isn't generating high enough retention metrics or boosting subscriber numbers, they are not going to continue to spend the millions on the licensing fees. Morgan Stanley estimated that during the last 18 months, the entertainment industry has recorded $8 billion in impairments from removing streaming content, resulting in you losing access to what you once had. And this has resulted in some streaming companies like Max beginning to license their content to Netflix in an attempt to make more money, sort of a modern day syndication. But I think what most find so infuriating about this roundabout is that one month, one of your favorite movies will be on Amazon Prime, and then the next month it's moved over to Paramount or Netflix or wherever, and then when you do find it on the other random streaming service, sometimes they want you to pay extra money just to rent it, and overall it just becomes a very frustrating process. So what's all of this going to look like in the future? Well, with the decline of physical media like DVDs and Blu-rays essentially becoming extinct, it's not looking good. We're probably venturing further into a time where we won't own anything. Streaming subscription prices will continue to rise, quality content will be scarce, and multiple bundles will be available and packed with ads. And before long, there will be an all-in-one offering where you can get 4 or 5 of the most popular services all packaged together for the same price as cable television, turning what was once an innovative product back into the very thing it set out to disrupt. Now, on the topic of disrupting, I recently covered why this salad chain is trying to reinvent fast food. You can check it out here. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.